Welcome to Rob Nagy's Rock and Roll Legacy. For more than 4 decades as a freelance music journalist, I had the honor and the privilege of interviewing countless music icons in rock and roll, jazz, R&B, and blues. It was a priceless journey that began in my late teens. I never imagined I would cross paths with many of my music heroes. For this week's episode, I selected an interview I conducted with Denny Laine, formerly of the Moody Blues and Paul McCartney and Wings, which I hope will be a memorable journey for you, the listener, and preserve his legacy for future generations. A highly regarded musician in the 1960s London rock scene, Laine rose to prominence in 1964 as a co-founding member of the Moody Blues, singing and playing guitar on the group's only #1 UK hit song, Go Now. Citing creative differences, Laine left the group in 1966 and was replaced by Justin Hayward. Teaming up with Paul and Linda McCartney in 1971, the trio formed Paul McCartney and Wings. Laine became an integral part of the group during their 10-year run, enjoying his greatest success performing, writing, and recording. In 1977, he co-wrote with Paul McCartney the UK #1 hit single, Mull of Kintyre. Laine left Wings in 1981 due to McCartney's reluctance to tour in the wake of the murder of John Lennon. During his career, Laine released 10 solo albums, including Wings at the Sound of Denny Laine, featuring reworkings of Wings songs. He continued to perform throughout the U.S. and abroad until health issues sidelined him in 2023. He died that same year at the age of 79 in Naples, Florida. Denny Laine was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 2018 as a member of the Moody Blues. You are about to hear an unscripted, never-before-broadcast phone interview I conducted with Laine in 2019. For your listening pleasure, I give you the late Denny Laine. Wondered if you could kind of give me a brief overview of what fans can expect at your show.
Yeah, well, this is one of the shows I do. I do a solo show, Songs and Stories. I also do a trio show, but this one is with my band, and they call themselves the Moody Wing Band, and it's basically Band on the Run album, plus quite a few tracks from the first Moody Blues album that I was on,
right,
which was called The Magnificent Moodies, and a few other songs, that I'm known for. That's about it, really.
Yeah.
Last date on the tour.
How are the shows going so far?
Well, I've been off the road now for just about a month, but they go down really well. People, like it. It's not like a tribute to these albums. It's more modern versions of the songs, if you like. It's more up to date. But and everybody gets to have a sing. It's all that. It's a good show because everybody joins in, and it's very good. The audience knows all the songs, that kind of thing.
What do you think makes a song timeless? Because you've got so many songs still sound as great today as they did, when they first came out. How do you define how that happens?
It's very difficult to define it. All I know is that, when we started, we were the Beatles, they led the way as far as being bands that did a lot of work on the road. We were just always out there, performing in front of people, and you get, I don't know, you get a certain confidence from that. You know how to pick good songs and write good songs. You learn so much from other people, and then you put it into a song that's, it's the kind of thing where you say, I've heard that. That reminds me of another song. But it's really just that you're putting all those influences into what you're doing, and it becomes commercial. So, anything like that. And of course we had access to all the great studios of the day, and all the people who were starting out in studios are all newcomers, and they've gone on to be big producers. But we're all kind of experimenting together, and so it was kind of a renaissance, really. In America too, not just England, and then those songs, stuck. That's all there is to it. And of course, you've got to remember they've been playing them on the radio for years and using them in ads as well. Mm-hmm. So it's all about marketing and all, and just exposure of songs that makes sort of timeless, I think.
Now, you were privileged. I guess it's just a matter of being born at the right time, and of course having the skill that you have to be a musician. You happen to be there in the front row, not only for your own career, but the career of some pretty amazing artists that will never be repeated again. How do you look back on that? I mean, it's got to just be chilling when you think about that.
Well, again, they were. I mean, for example, I knew Paul from Birmingham. We opened for the Beatles. So you go back to the early days. Bevan from ELO was in my band, and it was the Diplomats were called. And then Ginger Baker was on the same tour as Chuck Berry tour when we did Go Now, when that went up the charts. So I kind of met all these people then. Rod Stewart, Eric Clapton, and I got to know all these people because we were all working together. So I mean, as young kids, so it's just the way it is. And of course, over the years, everybody got really famous. But we always go back to how it was. We were all in bands together. We'd all be driving up and down the freeway, meeting up in the greasy spoon, we called it, and you just get to know, and the clubs in London, you just got to know everybody that way. So when I go out on the road now, I've bumped into Alan White. He's an old friend of mine. He's been playing with Yes for how many years? God knows how many years.
Oh, he's a phenomenal drummer. Yeah.
Yeah, and so I mean, and I worked with Alan in the old days. So I mean, that's how it is really. It's just. You get to know people, and then somewhere along the line, like Ginger came to me and said, "Do you fancy putting something together?" That was after Blind Faith fell apart. I knew all those guys. Steve Winwood came from my hometown. He was in the Spencer Davis group. I've worked with Spencer and Stevie. So I mean, you just know them from being young. That's all there is to it, really.
Mm-hmm. That had to just be a very exciting time, though. I mean, you're all young and you're all doing what you love to do, and I mean, it just had to be amazing.
Well, exciting and very scary. Well, it's scary, but a lot of competition,
Right.
You know what I mean? It was like you had to put the work in. I mean, people think we stood around getting stoned and drunk all the time, which we didn't. I mean, that came a little bit later when we were party animals. But, all the work that went into it. I mean, I think even John Lennon said we only had one day off a month.
Right.
We actually put the work in. We were either on the road or in the studio, or the pressure was on to follow up a single, whatever. So there was a lot of pressure on us. It wasn't so much. It was fun though.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, as I say, we all bounced off each other.
Right.
We all sort of stole bits and ideas off each other. And
right.
I mean, the Beatles were big Moody Blues fans, believe it or not, they were.
Well, how could they not be? I mean, there's a lot of similarities there.
Yeah, right.
Particularly later on, because you guys did, a lot of orchestration, and the Beatles ultimately did orchestration as well.
Yeah,
so.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I think everybody's trying to, as I say, got ideas from each other,
Right.
I even had a string band out there, which was based on what Paul was doing with George Martin in some ways.
Right. Yeah, people have no idea. In fact, I was just writing about this morning because I'm a big journaler and I'm lucky enough to interview a lot of artists like yourself. And people, you and I realize this because we're on the front lines, me as a journalist and you as a musician. But people don't realize the amount of work and the amount of disappointment and frustration and whatnot that goes into what they see up on stage or on television. People just generally don't have any idea.
No, absolutely don't. Especially from the financial point of view. Everybody thought the Beatles were millionaires, and John Lennon said, we're not millionaires. We don't know how much we're worth. A lot of people ran off with the money.
Right.
There's a single that we made after Go Now, which never got released, and if that had been released, we'd have probably had another number one after it. Then that was all through Decca Records and, sort of management.
Right.
Things like that people don't know about. Like you say, they don't know what's going on in the back room. We should have been on the Ed Sullivan Show, and our visas didn't come through in time. So there's stuff like that. And you just have to fight your way through all this stuff and just keep going. I mean, that's the secret. People say, what's the secret? They say, well, just keep doing it.
Right.
You know?
Well, I've never understood the dishonesty that goes on in the business, because I've dealt with artists at a management and publicity level and as a writer and whatnot. I would never do that to an artist, and I've never understood that.
Well, I can understand it to a point, and that is because a lot of these people weren't in it for the right reasons to start with, or they pretend to know more than they do, and then they kind of end up, oh, you've got to invest your money, and then, I mean, look what happened to Batchin, things like that. I don't think they start out particularly trying to be, crooks, but they end up being that way, or just not being able to do their job properly, mismanagement, whatever you call it.
Right.
But they don't seem to have a conscience about it.
Well, they're the ones that have to go home with themselves. You and I don't.
Well, that's true.
Yeah, at some point.
Yeah.
So, how do you keep, Denny? How do you keep the songs fresh? I know a lot of artists that I talk to. Well, not a lot, but enough tell me that they don't want to look back in the past. They want to worry about what's going on now, and they don't really respect or cherish the past hits that have gotten them, or records that have gotten them to the point where they're at now, where people come out to see them. So, how do you look at the music you've done? Does it get old or stale for you?
No, not really. Because, the thing is, they just remastered everything. And once they've done that, you revisit those songs and you actually start to... at the time we were very proud of what we were doing. We were always never completely satisfied.
Right.
We never are.
Right.
But then when you look back on them and you want to relearn them, say, I learned some songs to put in this show that I'm going to do, you start appreciating them for what they are. And the fact that that was a good band, you forget how good you were. So that's really what it is. And then you go out and you do the songs slightly different to the way you did them anyway.
Right.
Because it's an up-to-date version. You're not copying the records. Like a tribute band. You're just keeping it fresh, and it's not hard to do it, because a song is a song, and even if you do it as a solo artist just for the guitar, that's probably how it was written anyway. So it doesn't matter how you do the song. It's really just doing the songs, and I pick songs which I like. I don't particularly just do every song that's out there, but I will put a set together of songs that I'm probably co-wrote or wrote, or stuff like that, or somebody else's song that I admire, some other writer, and you just do it because you like the music, you like the songs, and then, as I say, the up-to-date version comes from the members of the band, what they add to it, stuff like that. It's not all strictly as it was. Yeah.
Now, you ultimately have ended up in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. What was that experience like for you to be recognized in that fashion?
Well, obviously, I was very happy to be in it because originally they didn't ask me to be in it. They were just going to induct the other guys. And then a couple of weeks later, I get the call, I suppose, pressure from friends of mine who are on the board and whatever. Peter Asher, Stevie Van Zandt stuck up for me, but they couldn't have really put the Moody's in without Go Now, because Go Now was the only number one the Moody's had. You have to have had a number one, I believe, to be in there. So, I was in there in a way by default. And, I wasn't that worried, neither was they that worried about not being in there before either. Because it's an American thing, it's not an English thing. But obviously, once you are part of it, you do feel very... I was part of a great club, and again, a lot of these musicians that were at that induction, I knew a lot of them. I'd met them before, a lot of them. So you play around, you meet all these people, and you just feel, you just feel part of the whole thing. And of course, a lot of people see you on television, which isn't bad. Right. So that's all good.
Right.
So.
Now we've met a few times, Denny, and I've interviewed you a few times in the past, and
I recognize you.
Yeah,
I recognize your name.
Yeah, you've always been very kind to me, and I really do appreciate that very much. And you the one thing that struck me about you is in person as well as on the phone, you're a regular person. You're a straight shooter, and a lot of times I'll meet musicians, and they'll be very different in person than they are on the phone, and not always in a good way. And I'm wondering how you manage to just be a nice guy and just be very accessible and a down to earth person.
Well, I mean, that's very nice of you to say so, but, you know, we all started out the same way. That's the way I look at it. You know, we all came from kind of working class backgrounds, a lot of us, and we just still are those people. We just do this job, and it's part of the job to be communicative, if you like. I mean, you just have to be that kind of person. And I always was a little bit like that. Just like Paul, you know, we like people. We like sharing ideas and talking about the music business and everything else. Because we get as much back from people like you as you get from us.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the way we see it. But at the same time, you know, I'm nobody's fool. If somebody, I don't just do everything that everybody expects me to do either. I'm not a yes man, you know. See what I mean? So if somebody just rubs me up the wrong way, I'm just not going to be the nicest guy in the world at all. Because there's so many things that have happened, you know, in the business. Like I say, you have to be very selective about who you work with, and you know what I mean. You just got to be more like, you know, direct and get what you want. Really, you can't be everybody's friend. Let's put it that way.
Well, that's impossible. Yeah, it's impossible for everybody to like you, and that's that's a whole other psychology.
And you do get a lot of that negative stuff too.
Right.
You remember that.
Yeah.
You know, so you have to be wary of that and have to deal with that as well. But, you know, as I say, we came from this, and we've learned this trade as part of, you know, being famous is part of the business, and having to deal with fame. I watched it with Paul. I watched it with all the Beatles and lots of other big names. I've seen it with them. You know, I still have friends who are huge names. I have a lot of business people who are very, very successful business people as friends, and they all go through the same thing. Mm-hmm. So I mean, it's just a matter of, like, you know, dealing with people. It's all about giving and taking, and you have to give back. You know, so that's all I'm saying.
I agree with you. What do you want people, Denny? What do you want people to experience when they come out and see you perform, and what would you like them to go away with?
Well, you know, again, it's about playing live to an audience that gives you it gives me a thrill in a way, because that's what I love to do. I mean, it's not like being an actor so much as a film actor, where you don't really know what the audience is going to be doing. You know, as a stage actor, you do. I mean, it's having that reaction from an audience that puts you in a better place. You have to balance that out with recording and all the other stuff that you do. You can't just, you know. But anyway, it's all down to the audience that gives you the energy. So, as I say, you know, it's not that hard. You know, when you've got a good audience, or they know your stuff, or a lot of people say thank you to the music. They respect stuff. They'll bring the kids along. There'll be a lot of compliments coming our way, and which is a great thing. That makes you feel good, and you just, you know, you give back because of that. I mean, you can't do it unless you have an audience. You can't be at your best, I don't think. Right.
I've also observed, Denny, that, you know, after your shows, you make yourself accessible. You really seem to enjoy meeting your fans.
That actually, Bob, that has changed because I've stopped doing that.
Oh, have you?
I did for a long time. You know, I found out that I was, you know, getting to bed too late. I was getting on the road, which I usually like to do after a gig.
Right.
See what I mean?
Yeah.
So I kind of knocked it on the head. On the odd occasion, if it's called for, there will be a meet and greet prior to a show, maybe. But I don't do the after show. But, you know, if somebody comes up to me with a couple of albums after the gig and walking out, then I might sign them, things like that. But I don't do the standing in line thing anymore. Not unless I'm going to solo and everybody does it. But as I say, I'm old school like that anyway. I always think that's become part of the business. It's just weird, really, because everybody just goes out and signs and does everything. Right. You Yeah, it never used to be like that.
I know.
So,
Yeah, I know.
so if you want an autograph, then badly enough, you'll come up and get one.
Yeah, I got you. Well, this has been great, Denny, and I really appreciate your time. And unfortunately, I won't be able to get to the show. Are you guys going to be doing any shows in L.A. at some point?
Well, we did do a couple 2 months back there.
Oh, did you?
But, but no, not for a while.
Okay. Well, hopefully we'll get to cross paths again, because you've always been very kind to me, and I'd love to say hello to you. Love to see you again. Appreciate your time.
You too, man.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. For a musician who experienced the unique opportunity to be part of England's historic British invasion, Denny Laine exhibited deep appreciation for the friendships he forged, creative collaborations, and his ultimate enshrinement in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Humbled by praise and his loyal fan base, Laine never took his good fortune for granted. Gone but not forgotten, his musical legacy lives on during one of the most important periods in music history. Thank you for taking a walk with me down memory lane. I look forward to our time together next week when I present an interview I conducted with guitar legend Albert Lee in 2019. Until next time, peace, serenity, and blessings.